morning, everyone. My name is Celia Nolan. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of Hingham. The League is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. We do not support candidates or political parties. However, we do advocate on public policy after research, study, and consensus. Because of our nonpartisan position, we must adhere to certain guidelines when hosting candidate forums such as this evening's. In two-person contested races, we are not allowed to ask questions of a candidate if their opponent is not present. Our moderator may not be a member of our league, and we do not allow any type of outside recording, as videos may be edited and not represent the actual proceedings. This evening's forum is being recorded by Hingham's local cable access channel, Harbor Media, and footage will be available for viewing on their YouTube channel and website, as well as on the League of Women Voters of Hingham website. I would like to recognize our league member, Chris Wilk, for continuing to organize our yearly Hingham Candidates Forum. And I especially want to thank the candidates who are here this evening. Whether you are opposed or not, your taking time to address the voters is important in getting them to the polls as informed voters. Thank you for volunteering your time. Now, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Elizabeth Foster Nolan, who will review the rules.
Thank you, Celia. Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Foster Nolan. I am the president of the League of Women Voters of Massachusetts. I can tell it's spring because I'm back in Hingham to do a candidates forum. I don't want to think of how many years I've done this with Christine, sharing and getting all of this organized, for which I appreciate that. So this forum, as those who are here and hopefully those who are watching know, that this is part of the League's ongoing voter education efforts to help voters make informed decisions about upcoming elections. We hope that over the course of this program this evening, you will learn more about the candidates and what they hope to do for Hingham. I will start by explaining procedures for this evening's forum, which each candidate received ahead of time. We have two groups of candidates this evening, those who are in uncontested races and those who are in a contested race. We only have one contested race this evening. For each candidate who is here in an uncontested race, you will be given 2 minutes to give a statement. For those candidates in uncontested races who could not join us this evening, I will be reading statements sent in to the League of Women Voters of Hingham by those candidates. There will not be any questions for these candidates. So you may get a little tired of me speaking, but not the other candidates. So for the planning board candidates, you will each have 2 minutes for an opening statement, 1 minute for a closing statement, and 2 minutes to answer each question. There will be no rebuttal time, as this is an informational forum and not a debate. So the timekeepers are keeping our time here in the front row. They will prompt you when you're close to your allotted time. Please wrap up when you see the stop card. If you continue speaking after the stop card is held up, I will say thank you, and we will move on to the next speaker. Personal references about other candidates are always out of order. Please note the cameras are in the back of the room. A link to tonight's forum will be posted on the League of Women Voters Hingham website, as well as on their Facebook page. The forum will also be rebroadcast by Harbor Media on Hingham's local cable channels. There is no audio or videotaping of the forum allowed, as the recording of the event is the property of the Hingham League of Women Voters. So turn off your cell phones, your iPads, all of those things. I think everybody knows that already, but we like to say it. We ask that you remain quiet throughout the forum and hold your applause till the end, and you can clap for all the candidates if you wish. No campaign literature or signs are allowed inside this room. Questions have been prepared by members of the League of Women Voters of Hingham with input from community members who submitted questions. We will not be taking any questions from the floor this evening, and no candidate was provided copies of the questions, and they will be hearing the questions for the first time this evening. We will start with the candidates running in the uncontested races, beginning with Michael Puzo, who is running for moderator, William Ramsey, who is running for select board, and Board of Assessors Randall Winters, who I will read the statement. So if you want to come up and take your seat. And we will start with Mr. Puzo.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and thanks, of course, to the League for again sponsoring tonight's forum. I am Michael Puzo. I am a candidate for re-election as Hingham Town Moderator. It's been my privilege to have served in this capacity since 2012. In terms of our open form of town governance, open town meeting, of course, is a critical element of what makes Hingham the community it is, and the role of moderator is an essential element of open town meeting. For those who might be newer to Hingham or to New England in general, open town meeting is, of course, direct democracy, where every voter, every citizen who chooses to take part in the meeting does so with voice and vote. And we have a meeting coming up on Monday, April 24th. We'll start promptly at 7 o'clock. And it's the job of the moderator to, of all things, moderate the proceedings and to ensure that they run in an efficient and orderly fashion, that people have an opportunity to speak, to listen, to debate, and to decide important questions of essential value to the community. The other role that the moderator plays that is perhaps somewhat less visible is to share a point of responsibility with members of the select board for various boards and committees within the town. The moderator, for example, appoints all 15 members of the advisory committee, members of the personnel board, members of the Cleaner, Greener committee, which once upon a time had a much longer name, and then shares a point of responsibility with the select board for various tasked committees, including building committees and the like. It's a profound privilege to serve in this capacity. I endeavor to do it to the best of my ability. I will be a candidate. It's a one-year term for moderator. So I'm up again on April 29th, and I'll be grateful for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ramsey.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you to the League for this opportunity. My name is Bill Ramsey. I am a candidate for re-election to the Select Board. I currently serve as a Select Board. I'm a lifelong Hingham resident and practicing law since 2001. I'm very fortunate to have a diverse practice in my background: criminal work, domestic relations, done a lot of work within the Army, been a military lawyer. So I think that background has helped me with some of the challenges Select Board has. A lot of the issues we deal with are legal issues. Over the past 3 years, I'm very proud of what we've accomplished. First and foremost, we've invested in our capital infrastructure, which was essential for this town. I led the effort for funding for the Foster School. I was also very involved with funding for the public safety building. I worked to commit $3.1 million to our Ware River water system. The result of that is we have recovered almost 3% of unaccounted for water because of the capital infrastructure improvements there. With respect to climate goals, I'm very proud to say we've exceeded the goals we set 3 years ago. One of the goals was to hire a sustainability coordinator to help us achieve our climate objectives and to get us to a place of zero emissions in the future. We have 5 charging stations around town, and we're getting set to deploy water refilling stations, which would be a wonderful asset to our community. My goals, in terms of tax relief programs as well, something I'm very proud of. We've implemented 12 tax relief programs for residents to keep this town affordable, and I have pledged to fund those at the highest amounts allowed under the law. My goals going forward for the next term, first and foremost, I'm very committed to this override that we're going to have at town meeting and at the ballot. I would encourage residents to learn about that, understand the consequences of that override. Also, I'd like to, one of my goals with infrastructure is to ensure that we have a state-of-the-art senior center going forward. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I respectfully ask for your vote.
Thank you both. We appreciate you being here this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Elizabeth Eldridge thought she would be able to be here, but has been tied up at work, so I will be reading the statement that she sent in to the League of Women Voters. Good evening to the members of the League of Women Voters and other attendees. I apologize if I am not present at your candidate forum, but it most likely means that I have been held up at work. My name is Elizabeth Eldridge, though I'm most commonly known as Lizzie, and I'm running for my third term on the Hingham Board of Health. I initially became interested in the Board of Health when a sewer and septic system controversy arose as an article in the warrant of the Hingham Town meeting some years ago. While the health office in Hingham Town Hall handles most of the day-to-day issues of public health, the Board of Health spends a significant amount of its time deciding whether to grant variances for septic systems throughout the town. Septic systems are inherently important in the town as they can cause unsafe situations for the townspeople and for the environment if they are not functioning correctly or are inappropriately situated. In addition, they are extremely important to the recharging of our town water table. Over the past 6 years, I have been privileged to be on the Board of Health, learning a great deal about our septic systems, our wells, and the nuances necessary to keep our town safe, not only for our current residents, but for the future citizens of Hingham also. The health office in town is extremely well run, and our staff is incredibly helpful in answering questions that might arise to all members of our community. Our Board of Health meetings are open to all members of the public, and we strive to be fair and thoughtful in our decisions. I would be pleased to have your vote at our next town election. Thank you. The other person I need to read their statement from is Randall Winters, running for the Board of Assessors, who also could not be with us this evening. His statement is, "Thank you to the League of Women Voters of Hingham for inviting me to introduce myself. I am running for a 3-year term on the Board of Assessors. My wife and I have lived in Hingham for 10 years, and we have loved raising our 3 daughters in this town. I have been involved in real estate professionally for 17 years and currently run a real estate lending business locally. In addition to serving on the Board of Assessors for the past year, I have also been a member of the Hingham Affordable Housing Trust for the past 3 years. This past year, the Board of Assessors was able to generate record-high interest from qualified residents for exemption and abatement programs. We are very excited to see participation continue to grow in the future. This has been a very rewarding role for the past year that combines experiences from my professional background and my interest in serving our community. Thank you again, and I hope you will support me for this new term." We will now have our next panel. There is another person who could not be with us this evening, Tyler Harold, who is running for the Municipal Light Board. Oh. So, this is Tyler's statement for this evening. Good evening. My name is Tyler Harold, and I'm running for a seat on the Hingham Municipal Light Board. My wife Laura and I moved to Hingham in 2015, and we have 2 sons, Hayes and Shep, who attend East Elementary School. I have been serving on the board since appointed last year. I have over 20 years of experience in the energy industry, working for investment banks and energy companies, most recently running the energy trading business for Equilibrium Energy and for Boston Energy as the head of trading. In the past, I have managed energy trading businesses in North America with exposure to physical and financial fuels and electricity and fuel transport and storage, wholesale and retail load, as well as supply from gigawatts of thermal and renewable generation. This is a very important time in the global energy markets, with a lot of change and volatility. The global energy transition is affecting everyone from nations down to local communities. I hope to bring my deep knowledge of the industry and what is shaping it, and my understanding of its likely future to help chart the best course for Hingham. Electricity rates are on the rise, along with seemingly every other commodity the world needs, but I hope to help Hingham Municipal Light Plant come up with a plan which will achieve the following: limit rate increases to future-proof Hingham grid reliability and supply, and bring our rate structure forward to incorporate more modern rate design features, advise our supply contracting process to safeguard against the community overpaying for supply, promote initiatives to increase the efficiency of our energy use, to decrease demand and lower our costs, and continue to uphold Hingham Municipal Light Plan's excellent record of reliability and responsive customer service. I appreciate your vote on April 29th and look forward to continuing Hingham Municipal Light Plan's tradition of excellent service. So now we will move on to our next group, and that would be Michelle, Air, running for school committee.
Yes.
Yep, you have 2 minutes.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you for having me here tonight. Remembering how nervous I was at my first League of Women Voters Forum in 2017, I would have been surprised to be back here for a third time, but here I am. A little less nervous, but even more committed to the work of the school committee. One of the reasons I decided to seek a third term is because of the commitment of my fellow members. Members like Jen Benham, who's here with me tonight. She's really one of the most thoughtful, data-driven, and well-researched members of our committee, and I'm really honored to be running alongside her as we both seek re-election. Jen and my fellow members really just keep me inspired every day to keep giving back to our community and to keep fighting for the needs of our students. Coming out of the COVID public health emergency, the work of the school committee the past year has been focused on understanding the needs of our students and finding ways to support our staff in what is an increasingly fraught educational environment. Student learning, socialization, and physical and emotional well-being were really impacted for 3 school years. It's nearly a quarter of a student's entire school experience. And the impact of what was lost is not something that students will get over quickly. As a school committee member, it is our role to request the appropriate level of funding that's necessary to meet the very varied needs of our students in the coming years. And an appropriate level of funding is this year going to require a Proposition 2.5 override. I know overrides are not a thing that is done in Hingham, and no one wants to pay more taxes, myself included. But we have to recognize that the needs of our students have changed over the past several years, and we do have a responsibility to meet their needs. So I hope that you will support the override and also will vote to reelect Jen and I to another term of the school committee so we can continue to support our students and improve our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Benham.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here tonight, and thank you for the invitation to make a statement so you can learn a little bit about me and why I'm seeking a re-election to the school committee. I was elected to the school committee in June of 2020, which was a very challenging time to begin my public service. With the help of my colleagues like Michelle, who mentored me and reminded me of the important work that we're doing on behalf of students in our community, I learned how to listen to concerns, weigh alternatives, and use data to drive my decisions. After 3 years of non-traditional learning, I knew that one of the most important decisions the school committee would make this year was our budget proposal. As a member of the Finance Subcommittee, this year's budget process began for me in September and entailed months of detailed analysis of our school budget. We identified efficiencies, reallocated resources, and increased fees to ensure that the budget proposed maintained quality programs and services that support learning and the varied needs of our students. With COVID in the rearview mirror, it's easy to think that the impact of the pandemic is behind us. But children's education was interrupted to help protect our community, and that learning loss is not easily recovered from. Hingham was incredibly fortunate to have reserve funds on hand and federal grants to help defray expenses, but we know that the students still require significant investments to help them recover from the loss of traditional education. So in addition to your support for Michelle and I as candidates for re-election, I hope you will consider supporting the override budget so that we can meet the needs of our students and ensure Hingham continues to benefit from the strong reputation of our schools. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Byrne.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum, the forum this evening, and for having us all here to speak. And so I just wanted to say a special thank you to Celia, who I think might be the most active volunteer that I know in the community. My name is James Byrne, and I'm a very proud public servant. Currently, I serve as an assistant district attorney for the Suffolk County DA's office, where I'm assigned to the South Boston Division of the Boston Municipal Court. Prior to that, I served as the legal counsel for the Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security for the House of Representatives up on Beacon Hill. I grew up in the Washington, D.C. metro area, and my family emphasized volunteerism and community service from a very young age. And I'm very proud to be, outside of work, also an active volunteer here in Hingham. I'm a member of the Hingham Energy Action Committee, and my wife, who's here today, her and I are both very active in volunteering for fundraisers for the Hingham Nursery School. Moved to Hingham a couple of years ago, and since then I was married at St. Paul, and my wife and I have seen all of our nieces and nephews baptized at either St. Paul or Resurrection, so we're very proud to be a part of this community. I'm running for Sewer Commission because I'd like to further my volunteerism and service to the town of Hingham. And I'd also like to work with Dr. Schultz and Mr. Frazier to try to seek state and federal grant money to try to reduce the cost to our ratepayers here in Hingham. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I will now read the last two statements from the two candidates for the Recreation Commission who were unable to join us this evening. The first statement is from Vicki Dolan. My name is Vicki Dolan. Donlan, excuse me. Apologize. And I have lived in Hingham with my husband, Fran, for over 50 years. Our son David grew up here, so I became involved in everything Hingham. Over the years, I've been a Cub Scout leader, soccer coach, school aide, Plymouth River School Council member, middle school PTO co-chair, advisory committee member, noise bylaw committee member, and CPC representative for recreation. My love for business, health, and recreation led me 10 years ago to run for the Hingham Recreation Commission. Upon being elected, I was voted chair and have remained chair for the past 10 years. Residents may be unaware that the Hingham Recreation Department is a self-funded and very well-run business. Last year, the department generated a $1 million plus budget. Some of the accomplishments of the past 10 years, the funding and creation of the athletic field and court study, which detailed for the town our vast inventory of fields and courts and their maintenance requirements. The scheduling and maintenance of all facilities was placed under one entity, and the rec department was deemed best suited for this job. The result is a streamlined scheduling process, and fields are in the best condition in my 50 years here. I'm proud to announce that this accomplishment was recognized by the Mass Association of Recreation and Parks with the 2023 Community Impact Award. Playgrounds are an important part of the rec's commitment. We've built 3 in the past 10 years. This year, the commission requested and was awarded a CPC funding for a feasibility study and design plan for pickleball courts and reconstruction of the basketball court at Cronin Field. Our successful summer camp program has grown to well over 4,000 participants. Hingham Rec also staffs the harbor with lifeguards each year, working with the trustees of the bathing beach. Finally, the Rec Commission runs the enormously popular July 4th road race, now in its 64th year. I'm looking forward to another 5-year term with the Recreation Commission, and although I'm running unopposed, I would appreciate your vote as a show of confidence for the job we are doing. Thank you. The next statement is from Matthew LeBreton. He is running for the 3-year term for the Recreation Commission. Thank you very much for your invitation this evening. I am sorry that work and familial commitments preclude my participation in person. I was appointed to fill the remainder of a term on the Rec Commission by the Select Board this past summer. I am a small business owner, father of 3, football and basketball coach, volunteer director of Hingham Travel Basketball, and sit on various boards in and around town, including the Hingham Education Foundation and the Board of Directors for the Company Theater. Until my appointment, I had been an active customer of the programs and services offered by the Hingham Recreation, but I had little knowledge of the inner workings of the commission. We reach thousands of Hingham residents, from child care services during town meeting to offerings designed to keep our seniors active and healthy, and every age in between. Hingham Recreation does, or will positively impact you in our community. Outside of the director's salary, the commission is fully self-funded. The work we do provides the basis for our budget and programs. There are many impactful programs like Funky Feet, senior exercise classes, the 4th of July road race, open recreation time in the gym, and free workout facilities. Providing summer employment to over 100 young men and women in town, turf maintenance and field and usage improvements are just a few of the things we are committed to. There is much on our plate, but we can always do more. We are mindful of that and responsive to the needs of our community, working with various groups with different passions to study, plan, and execute the evolving needs of recreation in Hingham. The Recreation Commission and I as Commissioner recognize the need for continued vigilance in and around our community to discharge our duties in a way that celebrates our community while providing outstanding services and active spaces to all. I look forward to working with our neighbors to continue to do the things we do well and improve upon the areas we can do better. We will now move on to our contested race, and that is for the planning board. So I would ask Mr. Patch and Mr. Shriver to join us at the table.
Thanks, Karen.
And while you were getting settled, I will just remind you of the ground rules, which you probably know because you listened earlier. You will have 2 minutes for your opening statement, and opening statements are in the order that your names appear on the ballot. Mr. Patch, you will go first, and then we will move on to the questions and answers. And you will have 2 minutes to answer each question, a little bit more time than usual. It's an important position here in town, so the league felt to give you a little bit more time for the answers. Up on the board, if you can see it, you will see the questions. However, if the sunlight, you can't quite read it, you can ask me to repeat the question. So with that, we will start with your opening statement, Mr. Patch.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Tom Patch, candidate for Planning Board. Thank you for attending and tuning in. This is where I get to tell you a little bit about myself and why I'm seeking the position. I'm fortunate to have deep family roots in Hingham. I'm a 4th generation born and raised Hinghamite, which makes me an almost townie. So my educational background is Hingham Public Schools K through 12. I have a bachelor's degree in economics and political science, and I graduated law school. My work experience is I'm a practicing attorney, member of the Massachusetts Bar. After law school, I went to work for Fleet Financial Group in its mortgage division. I then went to work for a regional law firm where my practice focus is municipal law and land use law. This included providing town council services to the town of Kingston, Massachusetts. I then became general counsel to a multi-state real estate development company, and then became managing partner in a different law firm, and have since transitioned to my own individual practice. Over the course of time, I've interacted with many planning boards, including the Hingham Planning Board, and I've concluded that there are 6 key attributes to a highly effective planning board member. And those are expertise, perspective, ingenuity, critical thinking, collaboration, and most importantly, care for the community. I believe I possess these attributes and can step right into the position. So in the tradition of Hingham volunteerism, I am stepping forward to offer these attributes, time, and abilities to the community of Hingham to serve as its next planning board member. That said, I respectfully ask for your vote in the April 29th town election and look forward to answering questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Shriver.
Thank you for hosting tonight's event, and thank you for inviting us to participate in this forum. My name is Tracy Shriver, and I'm running for Planning Board. My wife and I moved to Hingham in 2017 when we found out we were having our first child. We chose Hingham for many reasons, some of which were the great public school system, and our oldest is currently enrolled in kindergarten and East Elementary, the public access to water and open space, and multiple connections to neighboring communities, including the commuter rail and ferry service. Finding an amazing community to call home, I quickly realized I wanted to get involved in the town, help strengthen and enrich all the characteristics of Hingham that drew our family here. Over 20 years ago now, I earned a master's degree in architecture and was only a few credits shy from earning a certificate in planning. The reason for being short was I decided to participate in the design build program in Havana, Cuba and Jutepec, Mexico, which is a decision I don't regret. I'm a registered architect and have been licensed in Massachusetts since 2002. Since 2012, I've been working at Elkes Manfredi Architects as a senior project manager. While at EMA, I've worked on some amazing projects with great teams in Boston, revitalizing historic structures, including the telephone building in Post Office Square, and for the past 5 years and counting on Landmark Center in the Fenway. Upon moving to Hingham, I was contacted by the American Institute of Architects about an opening on the Historic Districts Commission. I joined that commission in 2019 and became the chair 2 years ago. I was also a member of the Accessory Dwelling Unit Study Committee that presented a proposed zoning amendment to the Planning Board. It was that experience that led me to pursue additional opportunities with the Planning Board. After several meetings and conversations with members in the community, I decided to run for Planning Board in the upcoming election. The Planning Board has a large responsibility to every member of the community. This position requires a lot of work and dedication. I believe my professional skills, including teamwork, team building, and not just listening, but hearing people, as well as my professional experience, that I would be a positive addition to the board, and I respectfully request your vote on April 29th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to the question and answer portion of this forum. You will have 2 minutes to answer each question. The order of questions is from a random lottery, and we will alternate who answers first for the 4 questions. So for question 1, we will begin with Mr. Shriver. Hingham has developed a master plan. If you are elected, what are the aspects of the plan that you feel are especially important to act on in the next few years?
It's a huge master plan, and there are at least 100, if not more than 100, different actions to pick up on. I think important ones are, I think traffic is an issue. I think looking for ways to mitigate traffic is something that would be very helpful. We've been working a lot on infrastructure, utilities. I think continuing to enact ways of protecting those not protecting, but enhancing those utilities, improving those utilities for everybody is important. And housing's important as well. You know, people are coming to Hingham because of all the things it has to offer. There's a renewed interest in suburban living since COVID, and we're seeing those impacts on our town. We're seeing these really huge houses that people are coming in and looking to, you know, they're paying a lot of money for these houses, and they want to make big improvements. And you know, there's a historical character to town. There's a grain and a granular identity to this town. And I think that it's important to understand that, you know, it's more than just individual desires and stuff. It's building town and building community, and I think that's important.
Thank you. Mr. Patch.
So I highly recommend that people read the master plan that was adopted by the Planning Board in August of 2021, as well as the other reports, such as the housing report. The master plan identifies a number of areas that the Planning Board has to participate in, or they think that the Planning Board would have to participate in. The number one thing I'm seeing is from the master plan is zoning review, things like floor area ratio, what Tracy just mentioned. You know, we have this issue about the size of structures, and floor area ratio is designed to put some sort of proportionality into the size of these structures vis-a-vis the lots. You know, we have issues of development. We have to identify parcels. We're competing with other towns for development. We need commercial development in our tax base. So there's a number of things such as this. One of the problems with the master plan, and the Planning Board is trying to address it now, is trying to implement these things, actually implement them, because unfortunately the master plan can tend to be aspirational unless you actually take steps to implement it. So those are the thing I would focus on is basically zoning review and trying to connect that to development and housing.
Thank you. Mr. Patch. The town has stated that development in South Hingham represents the most significant opportunity for new revenue for the town. What type of development would you like to see in that area? Why, and what are your concerns?
Well, the first concern we have is that if you know anything about the town, that's the end of town where there's a lot of high water table. So it's not conducive to septic systems, and we don't have any sewer there, although we did create a sewer district. We haven't built the sewer plant. And Weymouth doesn't want us to connect into their system We're having a little issue with Weymouth. MWRA doesn't want us to piecemeal into their system because Hingham's the only town in the MWRA that only is partly sewered with MWRA. They want the whole town. So in our aquifer, we have our own aquifer. So, and that's all South Hingham. So we have these environmental constraints. And we've designated essentially the industrial park as a 43D expedited permitting. But that's getting the owner of that property, A.W. Perry, to sit down and get realistic about how much the town has to kick in to build that infrastructure, to make it happen, to make it sewered and that type of thing. So those are the concerns that I have. The type of development, I'd like to see mixed use. Housing, attracting business, self-sustaining, add to the tax base, make the most Hingham-friendly portion of that town in terms of residential, commercial, and somewhat industrial.
Thank you. Mr. Shriver.
I agree. I think that the type of development that would be beneficial there is mixed use. I think what's important would be to develop something that's has that grain that I spoke about in the last question and is walkable. We have Derby Street, which some would consider a lifestyle center, which means that you're not inside a mall, you're outside a mall walking around. No one really likes walking around Derby Street unless you're trying to get your steps in. A lot of people will drive from the Whole Foods back to the Barnes & Noble and things like that. And because it's a pretty big, it's a lot for people to kind of take. So I would like some mixed use development that was walkable and had livable streets. The concerns, of course, is the infrastructure. As Tom said, the water and the sewer are the issues. So that's definitely one concern. I think the other concern is making sure that the residents in South Hingham don't feel like they're just kind of getting all this commercial development kind of pushed onto them. And that's why I think the mixed use with the housing and other uses, whether it's a senior center or something like that, I think would be important.
Thank you. Mr. Shriver, question 3. The Planning Board has an article in this year's warrant addressing accessory dwelling units, ADUs. Do you feel there should be a familial requirement or not? Please explain your reasoning.
I was on the study committee, so I think most people know that I was for the familial, removing the familial requirement. And there's actually an alternate warrant, 29, correct? For potentially putting that back onto the warrant. The reason I was for it was, we're trying to create an option for some people, and it's not for everybody. I admit that. It is expensive. It's people may not be comfortable if someone else was living in their backyard, whether it's a detached or a detached ADU. But we're not going to find a silver bullet to solve the housing issues that we have in town. So I didn't see why having that restriction was helpful. I've made a correlation before of like if my best friend from grade school had a college-age kid, I'm old enough for that to be real, and who was doing a summer internship in Boston and wanted to stay in my ADU. This is someone who I've known their whole life, went on family vacations with, celebrated holidays with. They wouldn't be allowed to stay in my ADU because we weren't blood related. Whereas maybe a second cousin of mine from California who I've never met could potentially live in that ADU. Like, where do you draw the line and how do you define family in 2023? I think it's a very tricky situation, and I didn't understand why we would remove kind of that tool from people's toolbox if this was something that they thought was helpful for them.
Thank you. Mr. Patch.
Well, if you go back to 2018 when the ADU was discussed in depth with the planning board, the planning board voted for the ADUs within the single-family houses with the familial restriction because they felt that would affect a self-governing impact on enforcement concerns. So that's historically why that existed. You got to do a deep dive a little bit into this issue of familial requirement. It has been recognized by the courts as a legitimate aspect of zoning policy. The dispute comes into how do you define family? And we're trying to take care of it this year in our bylaw proposal by changing the definition of family to have a broader definition that conforms to the changing norms of what constitutes a family. So you can have someone who's not related by blood, two people living together, they may have children, that should constitute a family. So this is how we're trying to address the situation. As I've said before, one of the things a lot of people don't know is that our bylaw, the way it's been interpreted, has a provision that since 1941, if you want to have a two-family made out of a single family, you have the right to do it with that same A1 special permit you're going to have with an ADU. So everybody who's saying, I want to be able to have an ADU, but I don't want to have the familial restriction, well, just go exercise this other provision. You can make it a two-family. You don't even have to have a zone occupied, and there's no condition of anybody familial restriction. The whole point of the ADU was this was pitched to the town for the purpose of trying to help out families, and that's why this whole familial thing, this whole familial condition was put into it. And now there are people who don't want to have that because they don't believe in it. They just believe that you should be able to do straight rentals.
Thank you. Question 4. How should Hingham respond to the multifamily zoning requirements for MBTA communities by the December 2024 deadline set for commuter ferry communities?
Who's going first?
Mr. Patch.
Oh, lucky me. How should we respond? Well, we have to have a zoning bylaw in place by December 2024 because we've taken the position that we're a commuter rail community instead of a bus community. If we were a bus community, we would have to have the zoning in place by December 2023. And we also benefit from being a commuter rail because the density aspect of what they think our density should be overall is less. It's like 1,500 versus 2,000 units. Staff has submitted a preliminary approval to DHCD, and it's in the process of being reviewed. And essentially, we need to do something because the Attorney General's office is threatening to sue us. Any municipality that doesn't do this. It's not just about we're not going to give you money. Now the AG is saying if you don't do this, we're going to sue you. So basically, we've got to do something. We've got to look at where we can put this. It has to be within a half a mile, predominantly within a half a mile of any transit center. So. We're talking West Hingham, we're talking Nantasket Junction, we're talking about the ferry, the ferry junction. I just want a clarification. My understanding of this, the legislation and the regulations doesn't specifically call out commuter ferry communities. But we've taken the position we're a commuter rail facility and sort of lump summing in the ferry with that. So we're just going to have to do it. We're just going to have to try to figure it out. And my thought would be to try to spread it out over all 3 areas to lessen the impact.
Thank you, Mr. Patch. Mr. Shriver.
I think there's going to be multiple steps between the town and the state between now and December 24th. I think we're through the first 2 steps so far. The first one was just kind of identifying the areas, which were, West Hingham, the ferry, and Nantasket. The second one was kind of resubmitting a very similar application with a little bit more refined detail to it. And You can go on the town's website and see the response that the town had to those initial 2 steps. And there's definitely some pushback there. There's pushback being that it's kind of a prescriptive policy to every one of these these communities in the state. And it seems like Hingham's stance is it really can't be prescriptive like that. Every town is different. Every town has different needs. Every town has different uses around their commuter stations. So they're trying to have a dialogue with the state to have it be more responsive to the individual towns. So that's why I think it's not just going to be, the next step, December 24th. I think that dialogue is going to continue, and hopefully the state, sees not only Hingham's point of view, but some of these other towns' point of views, because I'm sure Hingham's not the only one pushing back. But I think the more that it can be kind of, mold it in a way for each town to respond in a way that's best for them, I think it will be better for all the communities, especially Hingham.
Thank you. We will now move on to your closing statements. You will have 1 minute for your closing statement, and closing statements are in the reverse order of your opening statements. So, Mr. Shriver, we will start with you.
All right. Didn't know how many questions there were going to be, but apparently 4.
We like to keep you wondering.
Again, thank you for inviting us here tonight and for taking the time out of your schedules to attend and for the questions. The planning board has a lot of work in front of it. It is more than reviewing applications in bi-weekly or more often meetings. There's actual planning to be done to adopt different aspects of the most current master plan. I believe that my design background is an asset to the planning board. I believe that my desire to understand all the constraints, the varying viewpoints, the positives and the negatives of each issue, and then utilizing my problem-solving skills to help the board as a team to develop positive outcomes is an asset to the planning board. I want Hingham to remain as vibrant and welcoming a town and to enhance all the reasons that made my family choose to live here for this generation and generations to follow. I respectfully ask that you vote for me, Tracy Shriver, on April 29th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shriver. Mr. Patch.
Yes, in closing, I thank the league, I thank Tracy and everybody who's present and everybody who is tuning in. These forums are important because they enable the community to become more informed in choosing their elected officials. It's always a good thing. The planning board is a consequential position in town of Hingham government. The board's work and decisions impact in many direct and indirect ways our Hingham community as it exists today and will exist in the future. I am confident I possess and can offer the time, attributes, and abilities required of a highly effective planning board member for the benefit of our Hingham community. I care deeply and I am committed to the well-being of our community, including hearing, respecting, and valuing all who have chosen to live or work in Hingham. I ask each of you to allow me the honor to serve as the next planning board member and respectfully ask for your vote in the April 29th town election. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate you being here this evening.
Thank you. Thanks, Frank.
And as we wrap this up this evening, Jim. Sorry, a little technical difficulty. There's a few announcements that we need to make that are on the slide. So as you all know, Election Day is April 29th. Deadline to register to vote for both the April 24th town meeting and town election is this Friday, April 14th. Mail-in ballots are now available, and you can apply on the town clerk's website. And then also, I would like to thank all the candidates for their participation in the democratic process and the Hingham League of Women Voters for once again sponsoring this annual event. Please remember to vote on April 29th or get a mail-in ballot and drop it off right outside here in the lovely box for the clerk's office. Please encourage your friends and your neighbors to vote. If you know someone who can't drive to the polls, please offer them a ride. If you will be out of town for the election, contact the clerk's office. If you have friends or family who think their vote doesn't matter, I need to remind you, there have been several races where elections were decided by 1 to 2 votes. So every vote does matter. And as we love to say with the League, your vote does matter. Democracy is not a spectator sport. And I think we all realize that. You're all here. We appreciate those people tuning in. And good luck to everybody on Election Day on April 29th. Thank you.